Hello, bonsoir, and welcome to the Get French Football News Show. I'm Nathan Staples, and joining me this evening are Rich Allen and Jeremy Smith. It's all going off in France this week, and with just a few days left of the transfer window, there could be a mad trolley dash to the checkouts. But before all of that and a great Ligue weekend, here are your latest headlines. After taking one step forward last weekend, Marseille took a big step back as they lost 2-1 on Friday night to high-flying Lille. Crowd trouble caused a delay of around 30 minutes in the second half, but even a goal on debut for Mario Balotelli was not enough to save l'OM from defeat. In the multiplex on Saturday, the day's big six-pointer went to Dijon as Kwon Chang-hoon and Naim Sliti's goals beat the then managerless Monaco. Naldo saw red for the second time in consecutive games as well, with Leonardo Jardim taking charge for his second spell, sort of before the game, but was not in the dugout during the match. Elsewhere, Reims are now level on points with Marseille after their 1-0 win over bottom side Guingamp. Strasbourg remain fifth with a 1-0 win over Bordeaux, with Nice on their coattails as they are just a point behind them after they dispatched Nîmes 2-0. On Sunday, Montpellier got back on the horse with a 2-0 win over Caen. The visitors now only goal difference outside the relegation playoff places, which is now occupied by Amiens, who helped Lyon extend their gap to those chasing the Champions League places to 4 points. Saint-Etienne will have to wait till Wednesday to try and close that gap as their game with Nantes was postponed for obvious reasons, while Toulouse and Angers' move fixture to later on Sunday ended in a goalless draw. In the final game of the weekend, Paris Saint-Germain maintained their form sans Neymar in a 4-1 win, marred by a missed red card after a dangerous by Niang tackle on Thilo Kehrer. More pressing concerns are for the Brazilian forward, who may now require surgery on his metatarsal on his foot and could rule him out not just for the Champions League games, but potentially for the rest of the season should that surgery need to be going forward. In transfer news, Sunderland's Josh Maja has joined Bordeaux for a fee believed to be around €3 million. Gelson Martins has swapped Atletico Madrid for Monaco temporarily until the end of the season, while Reims have snapped up Kosovan winger Arba Zaneli from Heronveen. And that's all for now. But to keep up to date with all the news in the world of French football, head on over to our website at www.getfootballnewsfrance.com and follow us on Twitter at GFFN. We start this week with only one real place we could go, and that is Monaco. It's all in the news, and it was happening sort of before our eyes on Thursday with Thierry Henry being suspended. He was then sacked, and now Leonardo Jardim has been confirmed as the man coming back in. There's a number of changes he may be making, Rich, but let's talk about the game first, because obviously matters on the field are the most important, and this was a massive game. And it's gone against them, really. And I suppose the only positive they can take out of this weekend is that both Caen and Angers and Amiens still lost. So they're only still sort of 2-3 points off the relegation playoff place and catching those two teams up. But this was a big opportunity missed.
It was. Not too many positives to take from the game for Monaco, I think. I suppose the only thing is that they at least looked a bit more creative. Although, you don't want to do them a service, but it is only Dijon, and they are quite a leaky team, so it's not surprising. But at least they created opportunities, which certainly in previous games they've looked even devoid of that kind of glimmer of sort of ray of hope. So there was at least that, but it is another disappointing defeat. It does tee things up, obviously, very intriguingly now with Jardim in. As you say, he was in the stands for the game, wasn't officially in charge. That was Frank Passy. It really was the same old problems, though. It's a very, very nervous looking Monaco team. Their confidence is shot, and that's through, inexperienced players all the way up to the very experienced players that they have in that squad, and we saw Badiashile, really struggling at the end of the game to sort of keep his emotions in check. And that goes all the way through to, as I say, the real experienced players. Kamil Glik. How many times this season have we said, Kamil? This isn't the Kamil Glik that we know. We know him to be a leading centre back in this division. Yet time and time again this season, he's just looked so shot of confidence. Naldo, who I thought was going to be a very good signing, with all the experience that he could bring. Yes, okay, his first red card was not a red card and should never have been given, but no denying that red card on Saturday evening. It was a ridiculously wild, needless challenge, and it was deserving of a red card. And that's not, you could perhaps expect that from a young player, a little rush of blood to the head, but not someone with all the age and experience that Naldo has got, especially, having previously been shown a red card, albeit as I say, in incorrect circumstances. So it was the same old problems really for Monaco. As I say, in terms of positivity, really, really strong. You're clutching at straws really to claim that creativity was a positive, because you could then counter it by saying, well, they were incredibly wasteful. I think it was 20 shots they had, of which a little over a quarter of them were on target. So yes, they were creative. Yes, opportunities were there, but failed to convert any of them. So still masses of work to do, and I think a very interesting couple of days with the transfer window due to close soon for Jardim.
Absolutely. And the interesting thing that's come out of a lot of this, really, Jez, is it seems like that Leonardo Jardim has come out swinging this time. He seemed dejected sort of when he left a couple of months ago. He's returned and he's willing to swing round the place, I think, and knock everything that he has in sight, because Michael Melano has left the club, the former Chelsea sporting director as well, who was in charge of transfers. He's obviously not too pleased with him, and he's gone just before he's been sworn in. There's rumours that he's looking to off-shift Yuri Tielemans, who he's not been pleased with since he's been at the club, and looking at as potential Adrian Silva, who obviously a Portuguese international who'd be well aware of his fellow compatriots' abilities in midfield. But it seems like he, at the moment, from the sounds of things, at least anyway, the difference this time around for Leonardo Jardim is he's not messing around, it seems like. But do you think he's got enough to turn this team out that, admittedly, while being more creative, did not score goals against one of the worst defences in Ligue
1? He should do. I mean, in terms of sort of swinging his authority around, I think he had quite a bit anyway. When he first arrived at Monaco, he wasn't necessarily the best known or best respected coach around, but he certainly obviously earned a lot of credit at Monaco with the sort of style of football, that all the styles of football that he could play, and of course with the title and the way that he brought through so many youngsters. So I don't think that I think his stock was quite high, and the fact that he's come back obviously shows that, as we all know, that they did sort of part on good terms. And only earlier last week he said that there was a chance that he'd come back in some capacity or other anyway. I wonder if Emanalo, I think the writing was on the wall with him for a while anyway, after having such a bad summer, and possibly this was kind of a good way to go about getting rid of him. I wonder if it's sort of been put under Jardim's name, but maybe everyone wanted rid in any case. But basically he's kind of played a blinder. He left sort of a little bit tired and worn out, with a really poor squad, and those with any kind of name or experience were either injured or shattered after the World Cup. He's come back 7 million euros richer for a start, and with his batteries refreshed, with a stronger squad. And you'd hope with some of those players, people like Subasic now coming back, Lopez, Falcao, who's had his injury problems this season, hopefully all ready to sort of come out firing. So I expect him to pull it out of the bag. I've said on Twitter a few times to people this week, I think Henry would have done as well. I don't think, I'm absolutely in agreement with lots of people that Henry did a lot wrong. But I also think he wasn't exactly sort of handed a full deck of cards. And I think if he was given a chance with this squad, I think he probably would have pulled it out of the bag as well. The problem is that, as Rich said, they're so low on confidence. It's such a knife edge that take the match on Saturday night. A couple of early chances for Falcao. If one of them had gone in, you could see them maybe settling and sort of hunkering down for a narrow win. But go a goal down and heads go down, and then they're sort of fighting a losing battle. And I can see that somewhere along the line, one streaky win, one way or the other, might be the start of a run, because they definitely have the spine now of a good team and should be able to put it out of the bag. But until they get that win, it's not an ideal situation. And these are the matches that kind of match against Dijon, albeit away, albeit against a team who just scored 6 away from home. That they need to be getting something out of, both because they need the points, but also to keep another team back down there. Dijon are now 5 points ahead, and that's a big gap when you're fighting relegation. There's sort of one relegation rival sort of halfway out of that sort of that mini league that they need to compete with. So I think he'll be okay, but it's still far from straightforward.
Yeah, I just want to give this team a good kick up the backside, I think, more than anything. It needs a right roiling telling off, because watching the game back a little bit on Saturday earlier today, some really poor moments, not just from defenders. I mean, we've talked about the centre-backs enough, but I want to highlight a few more players that were pretty awful at the weekend. Benjamin Hendricks, he cannot defend for the life of him. He lets Kwon Chan-hoon, he's a good player, but it's the simplest move of a ball over the top, and he just has to follow the player. He doesn't even pay attention to it, and he almost gets punished a second time with a chance for, I think it was Tavares as well, or was running off the back of him. He's not concentrating when defending and looking at players running past him instead.
The Shafiq pass was lovely, though.
But you should still. A basic defender should be following his runner.
True.
It's not the most difficult thing for him to do, and the problem with the midfield has been a problem all season, really, and I don't think Fabregas has solved anything yet, because the problem was that they couldn't keep hold of the ball and couldn't defend it, and all he's added is more players that lose the ball in bad positions for other teams to score so far, and that's not surprising for someone who has really been coasting at Chelsea the last year or so and has not done anything yet in his first few games at Monaco. But looking ahead, at least anyway, Rich, there's a few things that Leonardo Jardim needs to fix, but do you think maybe he needs to be that kind of manager that goes back to square one when he did first come to Monaco, when he did have that side that was so solid defensively as well and was sneaking out 1-0 wins? He's the kind of manager that can bring that organisation. He has to sort of revert back to that, surely.
I don't think he's got much choice, to be perfectly honest. With, as you say, a misfiring midfield, which then leaves a forward line pretty isolated. They're going to have to look at reverting to sort of Jardim's Monaco version 1, if you like, and get those you get that defence in order. In essence, that's possibly the trickiest job he's got. But at the minute, it seems as though with the players he's got, seemingly he's not going to be able to bring in a significant number of players between now and the end of the transfer window. You just feel that the players that he's got in defence, I just feel that there's a possibility that could happen. We know that Glick can perform. Yeah, we know Sidibe, for example, has got his flaws. Yes, but we know he can also be a good player. We know Naldo is a good player. He's just not had a good start. Whereas a number of those midfielders, they're still a little bit untested. Tielemans seems to be on his way out. Golovin has been effectively an unmitigated disaster. And there's just a real struggle in that midfield. So I think Jardim's going to have to really look at that defence, get that tightened up. I don't think Benaglio did particularly much wrong in goal, but you would argue that Subasic is just about the better goalkeeper. So you would only hope that at least that can provide a bit more stability, and you hope then that sort of flows through the defence. That familiarity that Subasic will have with Glick in front of him, you've just got to hope that works. So there is a huge amount that Jardim needs to do, but I think he can't go in all guns blazing. This isn't the time to be gung ho in this attractive forward attack minded football that we know Jardim can play. This is going to have to be the sort of pragmatic, not particularly pretty but very effective football. So I think I think you're right that's really where he's going to have to start with, and then in time, of course, that attacking football can come, and maybe with a build up of confidence in the defence that can then spread forward throughout the team. So we'll just have to see, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Premier League fans already, and Liverpool fans as well, know how good Fabinho is. I think this is even more testament to how crucial he was at Monaco and how he sort of held things together for them, because it's been impossible to replace him. And the fact that you can see where the mistakes are coming from, just where he used to be, and it's all sort of falling apart from there. But we'll see if they can pick it up. Go ahead, Jess.
No, I was just going to say on that, I think possibly if he can stay fit, the most important signing of this window could prove to be Vanka. I think he did that job well at Marseille as a kind of solid sort of rampart in the middle who can protect the defence, but also in a way sort of do Fabregas's legwork for him, and then sort of give the ball to Fabregas, and maybe can preserve energy and do what he does best. And then the only other one I wanted to mention, again, someone said today on Twitter that everyone's cutting Ollie too much slack. I mean, personally, I think it's the opposite, actually. I think people were desperate to be able to say, massive ego got in the way. I don't think he's necessarily been fairly treated. But the one thing that I would say when we're talking about how bad Monaco's defence has been up till now, personally, I think the most impressive defender in recent weeks has been Badiashile, who, as Rich said, is clearly taking this really badly, understandably. But I think he's been really impressive, and possibly that will be Owen's main legacy. That it was him sort of brought him in and really gave him a chance in the first.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see how Monaco sort of go again under the Portuguese manager, and see if Leonardo Jardim can pull them out of the mire and just show if he is really the top quality coach that we very much thought he was when he won the league with them. On from disaster movie really to pantomime, maybe might be the best way to express it, as we head to Marseille, because they ended up with a 2-1 defeat to Lille in sort of farcical circumstances. It was almost watching a drama. It was quite nice that they held the game up a little bit, at least for me, to catch the last 30 minutes, because that was the entertaining part. And Jez, it was pretty mental, really. That microcosm of that last 30 minutes was very much a Marseille season, wasn't it? I mean, but Balotelli comes on to add at the start of it, Thauvin gets a silly red card that spikes the crowd up again. Balotelli comes on and tries to be superhero again, and Marseille push too rapidly and let in a silly goal, and then even still then grab a goal that would have been an equaliser in another game, but because of their own sort of eagerness to try and get back into the game, it's caused them a problem at the back end. And now in 8th position on equal points with RAS, who have only just been promoted, who have admittedly had a terrific season. It's after a week where we thought maybe that calm result might be just the sort of tonic they needed, it's gone backwards again.
Yeah, I think it's one of those matches that had a little bit of everything, and certainly what you'd sort of come to expect from Marseille and everything that comes with it. I mean, in Germany they call Bayern Hollywood FC, but I think Marseille really are Hollywood FC. And from the fans beforehand saying that they weren't going to be there for the first 10 minutes as a protest, to Marseille actually having a very good first 10 minutes and really going at Lille, and maybe being a little bit unlucky to have a goal disallowed. Then Lille got back on top. You had Thauvin sending off, which actually, I know Thauvin had a big rant about it. It was, for me, it wasn't that it was a bad foul, but it was just a huge level of petulance. I mean, he just lashed out at the guy, and even though he didn't catch him or injure him, you can't do that kind of thing. And actually, Thauvin didn't argue much as he went off. It was only sort of afterwards that he made a big fuss. So I'm not sure he's got much of a leg to stand on, to be honest, even though it certainly wasn't as bad as what Yan got away with. And then, yeah, they were sort of well, then there was the flares, which, you know, speaking as a Metz fan, is unforgivable. You can understand the Marseille fans' frustrations, but I'm not sure they always go the right way about it. The booing and the whistling, it's fair enough to make your point, but you're not. I don't think you're helping the players, your own players, by doing that kind of thing. And obviously now, the club stands to be punished in a much worse way. And it was interesting that there was a quote that appeared tonight from an unnamed member of staff at Marseille, suggesting that possibly having to play behind closed doors might do the players a favour rather than having to play in front of their own fans booing them. But it's possible that the LFP goes down on them even more strongly, and at worst they could get a points deduction, which would affect their chances of qualifying for Europe even more. All that said, they did show signs of life. They did look good at the start. They showed a bit of character at the end. The fact that Balotelli got off to a goal-scoring start and almost had a brilliant snapshot from the edge of the area that just went wide, and that actually would have made it 1-1 at the time. So, I think he is a sort of confidence and a good mood player. So the fact that he did start with a goal maybe stands him in good stead for a little run before everything goes wrong, as it usually does with him. So as usual, not everything is completely terminal there, but it just feels that the atmosphere around the club and the way that everything is so black and white there, I think, exacerbates little problems and makes them seem worse than they are, and it just turns into a bit of a vicious circle.
Yeah, it doesn't help when the fans are starting to get on them, and that delay certainly didn't help either. But one player I sort of wanted to point out, really, Rich, especially because he was so good last season, and especially in the last month or so, he's been so bad, really, in my opinion, especially Luis Gustavo, who gave away the penalty for Nicola Pepe's opener as well, and it did go to VAR. It wasn't given initially, but it's a horrendous challenge, really. He's very lucky that he got a yellow. He probably should have got a red, and we'll talk more about VAR in a little while as well. But he's sort of symptomatic of how this team's gone backwards, isn't it? I know he's not playing in his ideal position. He's sort of playing centre back more often than centre midfield, but he's been pretty dreadful, really.
Yeah, he's a shadow of his former self. You do wonder, with the pair of Gustavo and Thauvin, if it's just sheer frustration at the situation. They have both been, by a long, long way, Marseille's best players now for 2 and a bit seasons. You just wonder, is it just frustration now that they have put in these... Thauvin had the season of his life last season. Gustavo has, certainly for the last 2 seasons, been one of the standout midfielders in the division. And they're putting in these performances. They're getting Marseille almost there. They get to a transfer window and nothing happens. The team doesn't progress. Bad signings are made. No progression. Team doesn't move forward. And, it's another season where Champions League football is looking more and more like a dream rather than a reality or a realistic chance. So you just wonder if between the pair of them, it's just frustration now getting to them. We thought we'd seen the petulance of Thauvin sort of ironed out. That made a return. Gustavo just seems to be so sort of peed off that he's continuously having to play out of position. He's clearly not a central defender. He's not good there. We can see that. But ultimately, he is still better than the vast majority of the other options at Rudy Garcia's disposal. And it's ridiculous that it's in that situation. And, if I'm Louis Gustavo, I'm thinking exactly the same thing. I think, I've been close to being player of the year the seasons I've played in midfield. You're now asking me to play out of position. You're not going to get the best from me. And in actual fact, you're going to hamper the team because I'm not a good defender. You'd be right to be annoyed about the situation that he's in. So I just, as I say, for me, it just screams of frustration that for all the effort that he has put in, the team as a whole hasn't progressed anywhere near to the levels that it should have done. So, it doesn't look like there's going to be much more, if any, movement in the transfer window this month, which means yet again, a window has passed where they have only partly got what they needed to get. Balotelli could turn out to be a really good signing. He's certainly going to be a better signing and a better option than the players they do have up front at the moment. But there's still the clear and obvious holes in that squad. And for someone like Gustavo, you must be thinking, I'm close to being at the end of my tether. How much more can I put into this team where the owners, the coach, sporting director, whoever, are clearly not doing their jobs? Their jobs are to coach the team, to develop the team, to improve the team, and it's just not happening. So if you're Gustavo, you're thinking, I'm close to having enough. Enough's enough, really.
Yeah, and it must be more frustrating that, in all honesty, Lille didn't have to really get out third gear to get the win out of this one. I know Marseille had pressure at the start and the end of the game, but Lille didn't really have to be really terrific or play out the skins to get a victory here. They sort of, especially in the goal that sealed it, was very, very amateur stuff, but good finish by Pepe. But just to finish on Marseille, Jez, I'm pretty sure all our English viewers will want to hear how Mario Balotelli's first cameo in LOM shirt went. I think the best way to describe it, especially from his attitude and the way he looked like he wanted to do it, very much like most Mario Balotelli debuts, I think Blood and Thunder might be the best way to put it.
Yeah, I think it was kind of a standard early appearance for a new club performance. You still had the sort of the moaning and the whole world seemed, why always me kind of thing. Everyone's got it in for me. But you also had glimpses of the real quality there. Like I said, there was an excellent snapshot from the edge of the area and what was a very good header to score the consolation. Often, maybe Liverpool aside, generally Balotelli has started well at most of the clubs he's been to, and I don't think anyone disputes that when he really wants to be, he's a fantastic player. The question has always been the mental side and how long you can maintain good form before falling out with people. So it was, as everyone has said, however it turns out, for neutrals it's going to be entertaining. And yeah, I think this is a good a start. Obviously, to have been on the winning side is even better, but I think it was as good a start as he could have hoped for. I don't think many people were even expecting him to be in the squad or to make an appearance, since he hasn't played for about 7 weeks. So to actually come on and to score a goal was like ideal for him. And as usual, it's about how and whether he can maintain that over a long period.
Absolutely, a terrific header really to get himself off the mark, and there's no lack of trying in that game. But like you say, it's just finding a way to keep him getting that motivation and keeping him on that edge without being teetering off it anyway. But do something about the hair, Mario. It's not a nice style at the moment. If I must say, on to top of the league stuff now. Paris Saint-Germain grabbed another win at the weekend at the expense of Rennes, but that's not really the main talking point for many after this game, Rich. It was by Niang's tackle on Tilo Kehrer that certainly got Thomas Tuchel in a bit of a fit. It's not a pretty one to watch, really. And another example maybe of VAR being good in the sense that we can see these replays and they have these opportunities, but at the same time, French referees and the French refereeing authorities are not using them correctly.
Yeah, it was a tackle at the time. Blink of an eye when it happened, you didn't, it was a foul, but you didn't really see how bad of a foul it was. It went in, yellow card was shown, free kick awarded, and you thought that was that. It became quickly apparent that Keira was in a lot of pain. It went to VAR. VAR, judged that the referee should come and have a look at it. Referee comes and has a look at it. You see it in slow motion, and there is zero denying that that is a red card. It's right on the ankle. It studs up. It looks dreadful. Everybody with VAR has been saying, yeah, but it's showing things in slow motion, and things in slow motion always look bad. It doesn't matter. That's a red card. Yeah, I can say that as a Ren fan without any hint of bias. That's a red card, no matter what. Now, this is the thing, you see. This is not then VAR's fault, because VAR has correctly said to the referee, you need to have a look at this, because we think that there's been a wrong, there's an incident here that you might have missed. The referee's had a look. The referee's seen it in slow motion, various angles, and somehow has come away from that thinking yellow card's the right decision. I don't know how. VAR for me did its job. For some reason, the referee decided studs up on the ankle late warranted a yellow card only. Now, we saw some of the tackles this weekend that were rightfully shown red cards. I, for the life of me, have no idea why that wasn't a red card. So if I'm a PSG fan, I'm rightfully feeling aggrieved on that particular incident, because there is no shadow of a doubt that should have been ran down to 10 men for the rest of the game.
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's another mark against VAR where it just feels a little bit like sometimes they don't want to overrule the referee if he's already made the decision sometimes. But that's not the point of the technology. It's to help referees. He can't see that a second time. It's not the option available to them. They need to assist them. And maybe a little bit more of saying, can the ref have a little bit of a look at this rather than trusting the VAR? Because yes, it does cause a longer delay, but for at least the time being, the referee can see and go, well, yeah, clearly I couldn't see that in first motion. It should be a red card. There needs to be maybe a little bit of a discussion about that or something in the refs thing. But let's not dwell on that too much, because there's quite a bit really for PSG to have their focus on, and a couple of interesting ones really. And the main one this evening concerns Neymar really, Jez, and according to sources, he's sort of 90% certain that he will need surgery on the metatarsal break that he had in the midweek game, and it's an unfortunate one for him. He's certainly going to miss the first Manchester United game. It's pretty certain as well he's going to miss the second one at least. If he does require that surgery, which is pretty likely, but we've not had full confirmation yet, then he could miss the rest of the season again, which is a shame. He'll at least get to his sister's birthday again, which would be nice for him. But despite that positive for him, it's again a little bit of a disappointment that we're not going to see, especially where in all honesty, this has probably been even better than last season. He's been in great form, and especially in those big games in the Champions League where we want to see him play, he's going to be missing.
PSG. Obviously, United are in much better form, but PSG should still, I think, be able to have the beating of Man United. But you'd want them to have their strongest squad available, and of course, the strongest squad includes Neymar. And even if not for the United match, if they get through that, by all accounts, he may even be missing for another round or two after that. And it's a concern because obviously on his day he's a match winner, and we've spoken I think a few times this year about how after the experience of last season and also being basically globally embarrassed during the World Cup. I think he has knuckled down this year. I think he has looked much more of a team player, much more interested. Certainly in that, for example, in that sort of decisive Red Star Belgrade match, even looked like he was more interested in staying on his feet and playing football than diving around. So I feel sorry for him that he's sort of been cut off, I guess, in a way, in his prime, when he's really looking the sharpest he's looked since he's been at PSG. And obviously, from a PSG point of view, it in theory, sort of dampens their chances of going further in the competition. But as Richard's team was a victim of on Sunday, they've still got so many options up front, so many different ways of scoring. Cavani, who a lot of people have sort of been writing off this season and saying he's not out of his depth, but looks a step behind all the others. He's now within a couple of goals at the top of the scoring charts. You've even got Mbappe deigning to pass up a good chance to score himself, to set Cavani up for goals, which I guess is a good sign for PSG sort of harmony. So there's still lots for them to be very positive about, but yeah, for Neymar himself, it's a really big blow. You've got to feel a little bit sorry. I don't apologise for being one of those who was highly critical of him last year, because I think there was lots about his play and his attitude that stank. But I do think it's been a lot better this year, and I do feel a little sorry for him.
Yeah, absolutely. The thing is, especially on those kind of special players that you do get sort of once in a generation, it is always a shame that they miss sections of the season, if any, and especially when they're in their prime, because we've seen a number of excellent Brazilian players, even very, very good ones, sort of when they do sometimes hit their 30s, lose it because of these injuries that they pick up, and you just hope that it's not going to knock it and he can come back to full fitness and be superb again, because you never quite know with any injury, at least. But on to sort of off the field matters at Paris Saint-Germain, Rich, it's been really interesting this week to hear about Angelo Henrique, the current sporting director. There's rumours that he might be let go come May time, but it might come even quicker than that from the sounds of some of the stories coming out now. Obviously, Frankie de Jong has decided to join Barcelona over Paris Saint-Germain, and that's the main reason Nasser El Khelaifi was looking at getting rid of him. But Tuchel has also spoken today of his surprise that the Leonardo Paredes deal that's been confirmed almost to enough of a degree for him to speak about it. Him not being in the ground, Tuchel was saying he's looked in the changing rooms, he's looked in the physio rooms, he's looked all the way around the club, but not spotted him just yet. And it's also because reportedly Henrique is trying to change some of the contract details at the last minute. It all seems a bit hapdash at the moment, doesn't it? But PSG are desperate for a midfielder. They were desperate for De Jong and have missed out on him. They're now desperate to get Paredes over the line, so they've got a midfielder in their ranks. And with 4 days left, it's getting closer and closer to that deadline. He could be gone by the end of January, couldn't he? If he can't get that deal over the line, which is pretty much confirmed, and then he's trying to change things last minute, which annoys any club really. He's not playing with house money at the moment, is he?
Well, that's the thing, is if he's effectively this transfer window being given one job, and that's bring in a defensive midfielder. It was the area that we've all known for numerous seasons now that PSG have needed to enhance and bring in a quality player in that particular position. And we've had transfer window after transfer window where that hasn't happened. This is the window now where he has effectively been told there's no other distractions. We've got a limited budget, supposedly 35 million. Basically, go out and get us that defensive midfielder. And we're now, 28 days into the transfer window, and PSG still don't have that defensive midfielder. They put a lot of time and effort, trips to Amsterdam, talks with Ajax, talks with the player's agent to try and bring Frankie de Jong. And for a long time, it looked like PSG were going to lead the race, and that would have been a superb piece of business. Okay, it might not have been that they'd have secured him right now, but they'd have secured him for the summer, and that would have had that would have then been them set in that position for the next 8, 9, 10 seasons, easy. Didn't happen in the end. Now there have been numerous suggestions and rumors as to why, and whether there were these text messages sent by Neymar, which I choose not to believe, to try and give Neymar the benefit of the doubt, but we never know, and we will never know. So they've missed out on him. Doucouré, it seemed at one point he was going to be him. Missed out on him. They're still ongoing with Idrissa Gueye. Now I can't believe Everton are that much of a pain to do business with. They've been pretty clear on the value that they want. In fact, they've been prepared to lower from the value that they'd wanted. PSG aren't seeming to hit that amount. Paredes has got as close as anybody has got to joining PSG to tick that box. And Henrique supposedly, or rumored to be, messing around at the 11th hour, putting the entire transfer at risk. I'm sorry, but he's ultimately failed. Sporting director is a fairly straightforward job in France, and for someone like PSG, especially in this transfer window, where his specifications were so obvious, so clear, it's almost so specific that it seems more impossible that they couldn't end up with a defensive midfielder. Yet, as I say, we're 3-4 days away from the deadline day arriving, and they still haven't got it sorted. Now, if for whatever reason nothing happens, he's got to go. To be honest, even if they do, even if Paredes does get over the line, even if they then do bring in Idrissa Gueye as well, it's not put PSG in the best of lights in terms of, you don't see Barcelona. Okay, maybe the signing that they've made recently up front would go against that, but you don't see a team like Barcelona, Real Madrid, a Liverpool, a Manchester City desperately scrabbling around trying to find a player at the last minute, and just effectively being held to ransom by clubs because they know that team is desperate. They don't get into that mess. PSG should not be in that mess in the slightest. And the fact that they are, as far as I'm concerned, that has to rest on Enrique. And for me, I can't see if he survives this transfer window, I can't see him surviving much beyond the summer, to be perfectly honest.
It's difficult to see him going. I can't believe the slander we're having of the Prince on this show today. I don't know if I can accept that, really. But yeah, it sounds like he's going to be gone. Paradise, the deal seemed to be over the line, and then it's gone backwards again. I don't know really what's going on, but hopefully they can get that one over the line and get some Champions League work, but maybe not this season for personal reasons, at least. Anyway, on to transfer news now, at least anyway, in 3 really interesting deals coming into Ligue over the last week. And the first one we spoke just before the show started, Jez, that it's a deal that 3 years ago, I think Sunderland, it might be just over 3 years ago, Sunderland bought Bordeaux's best player at that point in Wabi Kazri for a good deal of money, and now Bordeaux have returned the favour by purchasing Sunderland's best player in Josh Maggio. He only had 6 months left on his contract, so he was looking to leave, but Premier League clubs were even interested in the young forward, who's done excellent in League One this season and did okay in the Championship as well in his brief appearances there. Bordeaux have been looking for a main striker for a good 2 or 3 years now. He's very young. It's not too much of a risk, sort of believed to be around €3 million. It's a really interesting move from them, isn't it?
Yeah, I think really interesting and sort of brave on both sides from Maggio and from Bordeaux. And I think it's a reasonably well calculated one. I think it's not difficult to look around Europe and see that there are a few young English players that felt they weren't getting enough chances at home, have gone abroad and they're doing very well. And I wonder if it's also something that's being encouraged within the England setup from Gareth Southgate down, and it's stunning. Maybe not that surprising, but doesn't really make sense that this kind of thing hasn't happened earlier. When you look at how other countries and other countries' players have thrived by playing abroad, France is one of the very obvious examples. Brazil as well. There are so many young French and South American players coming to Europe. And it's not even just the footballing side. I think it's also sort of getting a general education and growing up as people, and having other languages, other responsibilities. And I think that does reflect well, or sort of, maybe it sounds silly, there isn't an obvious chain of causation, but I think maybe it does help them on the pitch as well, just being more settled. It's certainly in tournament situations and being used to a sort of foreign environment. And I think it's a good move. I think it's not sort of going up to the highest level, obviously, but not at risk of sounding like a couple of bitter Sunderland fans and directors. Bordeaux at the moment are not the very, very top, so he's not going to be massively in the public eye. But he's gone to a team where he can test himself. He can compete for a first team place without maybe having too much pressure to kind of immediately hit the ground running. But he can realistically expect to get good first team chances. Of course, he's getting all of that at Sunderland, but with the best will in the world, yes, they are a big club. Yes, they are well supported. But yes, at the moment, they are in the third tier. And having the opportunity to expand his horizons, do it in a very nice area of the world, and do it in a top flight team with European aspirations, but without ridiculous amounts of pressure on him, I think could work out really well for him. And looking at the kind of player he is, 2-footed, he's strong, he's good in the air. I don't think he'll allow himself to be bullied by the quite physical French defence, but he's also got the ability to bring the ball down and play good football. I think he could be really well suited to Ligue football.
Yeah, and I think what I like about him, especially for Bordeaux, is he's a bit of a poacher as well. He's a bit of a fox in the box. A lot of his goals in Ligue have sort of come from what I've seen of highlights, at least anyway, this season, has sort of come from rebounds and little balls in the 6-yard box even. So it's exactly the kind of player Bordeaux needed, and if he can show his form there, it'd be really, really great both for England and for Les Girondins as well. The big signing really this week, you might say, is sort of come up. It's been rumoured at least anyway all week, but it is sort of only sort of gone through on Monday. Earlier on today, really. Rich, is Gelson Martins, who's joined Monaco on loan from Atletico Madrid. It's not really worked out in Spain for the former Sporting Lisbon man, who was great in Portugal, really, and is really high thought of there as well. A bit of a speedster, a bit of a pace difference in the upfront marks. It's maybe not exactly what Monaco need, but he's also the kind of player that they don't have in those kind of areas at the moment. So maybe he helps them expand a little bit more going forward.
Yeah. It's. I mean, if they can get him back to the form he had at Sporting, then it's a brilliant piece of business. As you say, he struggled to find regular football following his move to Atletico. You're right. I also don't think it's necessarily a player that's of the utmost importance, but a player that is quick, a player that is willing to, take the ball and run with it. Maybe they are lacking a little bit. You wonder perhaps how him and Ronnie Lopez will play in the same team, whether Ronnie Lopez will be moved over more towards the left wing or even maybe more centrally. We'll have to see, because there's no doubt that Ronnie Lopez needs to be playing for Monaco as well. There's also the possibility that, Jardim, being a former Sporting man himself, as Martins was breaking into the sort of Sporting team was the season that Jardim was there. So, Jardim clearly knows the player. Jardim has always seems to remain well connected with his previous clubs. So he's going to know better than most what kind of player he's going to be getting. So initially I was a little skeptical as to, is this really what's needed? The more I think about it, the more you look into it, the more you think, actually, you know what, this could be, a really good move. It's low risk. It's only a loan move. It could just bring that sort of X factor, I suppose, isn't it? Really, that forward line for Monaco has lacked a little bit this season. So, yeah, if they can get him back to the form of 2-3 years ago, they're going to have a really talented player. And let's be honest as well. For all the problems that Monaco are in, they've still managed to pip the likes of Arsenal to the signing of Gelson Martins, which shows the influence. And you do wonder what impact Jardim coming back had on a decision there, because certainly I think Monaco arrived fairly late to the scene on looking to complete a deal for him. So you wonder if that Jardim effect, this is the first player, how many more players can that have that effect on? So yeah, I think this could turn out to be a pretty decent signing.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing how he does go, because, I mean, at one point, Sporting Lisbon were asking for 120 million euros from Atletico Madrid after he'd sort of cancelled his contract, and then whether that gets sorted out while he's on loan still remains to be seen. The final one was the transfer, really, that I really liked this week, and that's Reims have signed the Kosovan international, Arba Zaneli from Heerenveen, who's been on the radar of a few clubs, really, especially in Germany and Italy, but a player I really like. He's had a couple of injury problems, and he does sort of can be very inconsistent for Heerenveen for the last couple of years. Not been able to see him much this season, but someone who's creative, someone who likes to take on players from the left wing, cut inside, have a bit of a shot, create. I really like watching him play, and it's the kind of player that Reims needed. They are excellent defensively. They're so well organised. They just needed a little bit of flair, and it's one of those moves that for the club is an interesting one. It's not a huge risk on a player when they're in a better position in the league this season, so they can take this kind of risk this season. For Zanelli, it's the right kind of half step, if you will, to the next level. Really, we've seen other Dutch players. I'm thinking Ali Reza Yaran-Bakash at Brighton has maybe taken a too big a step to a difficult league for him, maybe. And then another one that comes to mind I was thinking of is Ousmane Tanane at Saint-Etienne. Maybe that was for chasing European competitions, maybe a bit of a difficult one for him. He never quite took off at Lever, but someone that Reims are really doing. And they're also interested, supposedly, in Baba Rahman as well, on loan from Chelsea, who's still only 24, which seems a little bit strange to the mind. But they're going for little by little ambitious moves just to add to what they've already done. And I really like the cut of their jib at the moment. They're really taking advantage of a good season to help improve their team and not just go into the next season as the sort of second season syndrome for promoted sides, and actually maybe establish themselves as a league on power once again, as they have been in the past. Go ahead, Rich.
Just before we could I just add one more to the transfer thing?
Go ahead.
Strasbourg. Obviously, they completed the loan signing of Samuel Grandsir a week or so ago. Today, completed the loan signing of former Rennes and Sochaux player Saint-Germain. I think that's another really excellent loan move. He'll add a little bit of guile in that centre midfield. Strasbourg obviously flying incredibly high at the moment. And I think, as you were saying with Reims and the players that they're looking to bring in, this is a real intent that Strasbourg, want to really continue this momentum. And these kind of signings, albeit only on loan, but these kind of signings show the intent of that. So I think two really good pieces of business from Strasbourg in the space of a week.
Yeah, it's just gone under my radar, that one, Rich. I think I loaded this about 3 hours ago, the transfer window on Ligue, and it didn't have that one. And now it does have that one. So, yeah, really interesting signing, that one. Him competing with potentially with Thomas and sort of that central second midfield role will be interesting as well, unless he plays a little bit deeper. It'll be really good to see what they do. On to the final bit this evening. And our Ligue snapshot's always a favourite of mine, at least. And I'll start with you, Jez. What's your Ligue snapshot this week?
I'm sorry to go back to them, and I know again it feels like I'm picking on them, but I think my favourite moment, I think, of this week's football was Marseille's attempt to kick off the second half of their match. I think it was possibly Thauvin, I'm not sure, who I think spotted the little keeper off his line and tried to have a shot from the halfway line, and it just sort of squirmed away for a throw in about halfway up the pitch, which is actually a tactic which I saw for years at Brighton, but this is supposedly a World Cup winner or a top flight team trying this, and it was you can't fault the idea and the sort of imagination, but the gap between between the inspiration and the actual ability was sort of painful and a bit laughable, and kind of in a way summed up where Marseille are right now.
Rich, what's your Liga snapshot?
Mine's a little bit of a gruesome one, I suppose. It's talking of I mentioned earlier that there were some really nasty challenges that were shown a red card. You will struggle to see a more wince-inducing one than Papagilabodji's red card for Guingamp against Reims. You feel for him because there's no violent intent in it, but as a ball comes over, he swings his boot and absolutely smashes into the face of Pablo Chavarria. Absolutely wallops him, and slow motion does it no favors whatsoever. It is an accident. He's gone for the ball. It's at that height where one player goes with his foot, the other goes with his head. But it's just a horrible mess. Chavarria is down. He's left with a broken nose. There's blood everywhere, and you see Djilabodji's shaken. He didn't mean it. He's shaking his head at himself that's happened, and sort of head in hands kind of thing. But it's really not pretty. But it's a deserved red card. But you watch that in slow motion. It's really not nice. You can't help but close your eyes at the point of contact.
Yeah, absolutely. It's not the prettiest one, but two from me this evening. One good, one bad. I'll start with a bad one, and there's the proverbial wall, I think, in footballing terms, where sometimes a player can fall off a cliff, and it's only really more concerning for defenders because it does happen very, very quickly for them. I'm thinking even the best of them, Gary Neville, Rio Ferdinand, hit the wall very quickly. And one man that's hit the wall, and I think it was epitomised by his own goal, which was very common. A very comedy own goal this weekend for Paul Bice at Caen. It sort of rebounded off everyone, and he took a swing at it, and it went into the back of his net. And he's been pretty bad really since he's been back at Caen. And we remember a couple of years ago how good he was at Nice in that back three with Lucien Favre, and even with a club well before that. And he's come backwards since then. He had an awful spell at Malaga where they essentially ran him out of town, and it's not been much better since he's been back at Caen, and he had his heads in his hands. He is a sort of a very proud and a heart on your sleeve kind of player, but I think it's quite clear that the best years of Paul Bice are definitely behind him. But the good thing news otherwise was back at that Monaco-Dijon game that we started at. The good news is someone who has plenty of years left of entertaining us, and one of my favourites in Ligue 1 is Kwon Chang-hoon being back in the starting lineup. He's only had 3 games back from that horrific injury that saw him miss out on the World Cup, where he would have definitely been a feature, and an exciting one at that, being in such great form towards the end of last season for Dijon. And him getting on the score sheet, him having a nice little game again, getting back into the flow of things. Hopefully he can be the man that helps propel Dijon back up the table again, and someone that you should definitely keep your eyes on if he does perform at the level he did last season, because he could be a really sneaky buy in the summer for someone, because he can be a real live wire and does remind me of one of my other favourite players. A bit of a Park Ji-sung about him of the energy levels and the commitment. So he's just maybe a little bit better in front of goal. But I do really enjoy him, and great to see him back on the football field. That's all that we have for this week. My thanks to Rich, Jez, and all of you listening at home. Do join us again for the preview show on Thursday. For now, and the main show will be back next week, same time, same place. Thank you very much. Enjoy your evening. A bientôt and goodbye.